The acting defense secretary says our focus now is to build an international consensus to put the pressure on Iran. So let's bring in former foreign policy advisor to the Obama campaign, David Tafuri, and Fox News military analyst Colonel David Hunt. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
All right, let me play a little bit of the acting defense secretary, Patrick Shanahan, so you can hear for himself. Here's what he said.
We have an international situation there in the Middle East. It's not a U.S. situation, and the focus for myself and Ambassador Bolton and Secretary Pompeo is to build international consensus to this international problem.
All right, Colonel, how do we do that? We know that there are other countries that are very interested in buying Iran's oil, for example, or potentially evading other sanctions. So how do we put together that coalition?
It's going to be difficult. The problem is that the countries in the Middle East are not inclined to help in their own defense. You have to get the other navies of the world involved. You're talking about probably attempting a blockade. They killed hundreds of soldiers in Iraq. Iran did. Directly killed them. They've been screwing around like this for years and years. However, I am not in favor of gunboat diplomacy, as it were. And I think we're having a real problem on getting nations to commit forces to help and do this.
Yeah, and David, this is what the Secretary, I'm sorry, this is General Jack Keane. This is what he says about the fact that this is not a binary choice. Here's his take.
You can take measured, limited military action to enforce diplomacy without the provocation of going to war. And it's a false choice when people say, well, if you pull the trigger, no matter how limited and how measured it is, it's a war like that, and therefore you're going to war with Iran.
What do you make of that assessment, David?
Well, I think General Keane is right. There are ways for the U.S. to push back. I don't think we should use military force yet. Clearly, these attacks by Iran, they have the hallmarks of things that Iran does. There are other reasons why they would attack these oil tankers. They can make the oil prices go up. So they're trying to get some attention, and they're trying to push back against the U.S. But the U.S. hasn't yet done a strong enough job of first showing that this definitely was Iran. I believe it was. So the U.S. should collect more information to prove to the world that Iran was responsible, and the U.S. has to set up some diplomatic initiatives to try and get Iran to step back, but make clear that the U.S. is willing to use force, as General Keane said, if it has to.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Mrs. Secretary, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Chris, it's great to be with you.
President Trump says flatly that Iran was responsible for the attack on those two tankers, and the Pentagon has released this video, which appears to show a Revolutionary Guard crew removing an unexploded mine from the hull of one of the boats. But as Rich reported, Germany's foreign minister says the video is not enough, and the Japanese owner of one of the ships says that he believes from the crew that it was hit by a flying object, not a mine. Two questions. How certain are you that Iran was responsible for these attacks, and do you have more evidence that you can share with us?
Well, Chris, it's unmistakable what happened here. These were attacks by the Islamic Republic of Iran on commercial shipping on the freedom of navigation with a clear intent to deny transit through the strait. This was on the Gulf of Oman side of the Strait of Hormuz. There's no doubt the intelligence community has lots of data, lots of evidence. The world will come to see much of it, but the American people should rest assured we have high confidence with respect to who conducted these attacks, as well as a half a dozen other attacks throughout the world over the past 40 days.